So, Marvel, if you're watching this video, which is highly unlikely, but if you are, could we please get a movie with Goose the Cat, Rocket the Raccoon, and Horde the Duck? I think they'd honestly make for a pretty awesome team. Hi, I'm Danny Quinn, and welcome to another episode of First Impressions. On today's episode, Brie Larson swings into action as Captain Marvel, and I see if she's going to be more than a match for Thanos, or if she'll be turned to dust as easily as the fallen Avengers. The movie revolves around Veers, played by Brie Larson, a Kree warrior who finds herself caught in the middle of an intergalactic conflict between her people and the shape-shifting Skrulls led by Ben Mendelsohn's Talos. And she also struggles with memories of her past life as US Air Force pilot Carol Danvers. After an infiltration mission goes wrong, she ends up on Earth in the year 1995, where she meets Agent Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and with Fury's help tries to uncover the secrets of her past while harnessing her special superpowers so that she can end the war between the Kree and the Skrulls. So while the MCU has definitely come leaps and bounds since its debut in 2008 with Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, and it has launched plenty of badass heroines since then, such as Black Widow, Gamora, Scarlet Witch and Valkyrie amongst several others, it's kind of a pity that we haven't gotten a proper solo movie about those characters. Supposedly this is because of some behind the scenes management bullshit, because apparently some of the higher-ups at Marvel think female superheroes can't helm a movie on their own, a belief that was ridiculously perpetuated by the back-to-back failures of Elektra and Catwoman in the early 2000s. And I'm hoping the success of Wonder Woman way back in 2017 shattered those notions once and for all. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Captain Marvel, which is the latest installment of the MCU. So does it deliver? In a way, I would say it does, for the most part. Easily the biggest strength of the movie is Brie Larson in the title role. I know a lot of people were highly skeptical of her casting, but I honestly had faith in her since day one, and I'm pleased to say that my faith largely paid off. I think she sells into the role of Captain Marvel perfectly. She has a lot of charm, she's likeable, and she has a great sense of humour. Again, for all the complaints that I heard online about her being too emotionless or too stoic, I genuinely think she's excellent in the part. And while I'm not too sure about her being the main star of the MCU going forward just yet, I definitely think she has the potential to fit Robert Downey Jr.'s shoes. And I also love the relationship between her and Nick Fury. That aspect is easily the main highlight of the movie for me. The rapport between the two is not only funny, but genuinely quite sweet and touching in places. I'm also happy to see Samuel L. Jackson back in this role after being away from the role for quite a while. Not to mention the visual effects work used to de-age Nick Fury looks genuinely incredible. Like, legit. He looks exactly the way Samuel L. Jackson did back in 1995 when he was in Die Hard with a Vengeance. And the repartee between him and Larson definitely brings to mind his interactions with Bruce Willis in that film. In fact, much of the movie has the look and feel of a mid-90s blockbuster, and I mean that in the best possible way. The setting and location really reminds me a lot of Independence Day, right down to the fact that one set piece takes place in the midst of a canyon. And I know that Goose was also in the comics, but for whatever reason, Goose really reminded me a lot of the Cap from Men in Black, in the sense that they're both carrying around the main MacGuffin of the film. And I'm not gonna lie, after seeing so many movies trying to recapture the 70s or the 80s or the 60s or the 50s and trying to really capture this sort of nostalgic affection for those eras, it's really nice to see a movie that affectionately captures the nostalgia for the 90s. Captain Marvel is very much a tale about self-discovery. It's very much a tale about finding your own strength and finding your own humanity. As Danvers has been ostensibly trained to be this ultimate warrior who's very stoic, she's been forced to suppress a lot of her own humanity in order to work for the Kree. And in action, she's tough, ferocious, and vicious, but there's something holding her back from recognizing her full potential. She's supposed to be this very stoic, emotionless soldier, yet she keeps having memories of a previous life. And that's something that Jude Law's Jon Rogg recognises and he's trying to train out of her. Indeed, I think the scenes between her and Jon Rogg are easily some of the best in the film, and it's just kind of a pity that Jude Law's Jon Rogg is probably the only Kree in this film that gets any real characterization. And I think that's ultimately one of the big problems of the film. Most of the supporting cast are just very forgettable, especially when it comes to the Kree characters. You got the likes of Ronan and Korath who are returning from Guardians of the Galaxy. Again, makes sense because this is actually set several years before Guardians of the Galaxy. But they're given virtually nothing to do. They're just largely there because they were in a previous MCU film, and it just feels like they're just completely wasted, unfortunately. And it also extends to the members of the Kree Star Force. I feel like none of the Kree Star Force get any real personality. They're all very forgettable. The only one that gets any real characterization at all is Gemma Chan's Minerva. And even then, the only thing going for her is that she has some kind of rivalry with Veers, which isn't really conveyed or set up in the film at all. Again, like, it might seem like a bit of a nitpick, but I feel like if the Star Force members were given a bit more personality or something, I think it would have added a bit more to the story. It would have made the conflict that Veers is going through a lot more interesting. It would have maybe strengthened the conflict a wee bit more. And that's really odd, because usually it seems like most MCU films have great supporting casts, but more often than not are let down by their villains. Whereas here, it's almost the total opposite. This movie is a very lackluster supporting cast, but it has a really good villain in the form of Ben Mendelsohn's Talos. I can't really say too much about this character because that would be going into spoiler territory. And yes, on paper, it just seems like Mendelsohn is playing exclusively the type like he does in Rogue One or The Dark Knight Rises or Ready Player One. But he actually does turn out to be a lot more engaging and interesting than playing those characters would suggest. But the rest of the supporting cast are all mostly very underutilised. Clark Gregg reprises his role as a de-aged Agent Coulson after several years on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's kind of a shame they don't really do much more with his character. He's just largely kind of there for much of the movie and he doesn't really do much at all. The only real exceptions are perhaps Lashana Lynch as Maria, Danvers' old friend, who's very likeable and the scenes between her and Larson do work, but there's not really enough scenes spent with them to really get the full emotional impact of that. And Annette Bening also really steals the show in a prominent part that I can't really give much away about because, again, it is kind of going into spoiler territory. Another issue I have with the film, I would say, is probably its direction. Not that I think it's bad or anything, it's fine, it's competent for the most part, but that's really about it. And I know the MCU does kind of get a lot of criticism for being a very producer-driven franchise, which makes sense because it is a cinematic universe and you do need a strong producer to sort of guide everything through. It's part of the reason why DC has kind of struggled until now. But to Marvel's credit, they do really select very strong directors who can still tell very personal stories within the confines of the MCU. I mean, you think of the likes of Joss Whedon, Shane Black, Taika Waititi, James Gunn, the Russo brothers, Ryan Coogler, have all managed to make very entertaining blockbusters that all have their own distinct stamp on them. Whereas here, the directing, while competent, isn't all that outstanding. It doesn't feel all that personal or unique. Nevertheless, Captain Marvel is still very entertaining. It's the kind of blockbuster that only Marvel can pull off. Yeah, it might be a little bit formulaic, but I've always said there's nothing inherently wrong with a formula if it works. It's like the saying goes, you can't fault a formula if it works, and for the most part, this does work. But because of its lackluster supporting cast and its occasionally homogenous direction, I don't think the film really rises up to being one of the better entries in the MCU films. I think it's a very mid-tier film overall. And even as far as female-led superhero movies go, this still isn't exactly the best of them. I still think Wonder Woman is slightly stronger than this. But contrary to what many fans might say, that's not to knock Captain Marvel down by any means. And even if it isn't a personal favourite, I still rather enjoyed it, and I really hope we get to see more of this character in future films. I'm gonna give Captain Marvel a strong 7 out of 10. All I can say is after this film, Thanos better watch his back because his ass is going to be fucked. And regardless of how you feel about Larson, I do recommend this film strongly. I really hope you can kind of put aside your feelings on Larson and maybe give this movie a shot. And I really do hope that we get to see more of this character in upcoming films because I do feel like there is potential here, even if it's not fully tapped into. It's like the main character herself. She has a lot of potential to be great, but there's just something that's kind of holding her back from reaching her true greatness. And hopefully with subsequent films, she will live up to that potential. And I feel like I've been saying that a lot recently, haven't I? Films that are just potentially great that just end up being kind of good and could potentially be better. I feel like I've been saying that a lot recently. So Captain Marvel, have you seen it yet? If so, what did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you once again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe to my channel while you're at it. If there's anything I can do to improve my presentation, do let me know. I'm always happy to hear feedback as long as it's somewhat constructive. If you want to follow me on social media or support me on Patreon or check out my website, links are below down in the description. And until next time, I'm Danny Quinn, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.